D.T. Suzuki on the all-importance of an inner realization. The ideas that things are devoid of self-substance, or svabhava, that is, they are by nature empty, or sunya, that the world is nothing but mind with capital M, that in order to reach the ultimate end of Buddhahood, one must transcend all the limitations of dualism and particularization, and finally, that the state of enlightenment must be realized within one's self. These are the common property of Mahayana Buddhism. But in the Lankavatara, these ideas are developed in a way particular to this sutra. By this, I mean that it lays a special emphasis on the importance of self-realization, without which the Buddhist life remains a mere philosophical exercise. The reason why Buddhadharma handed this sutra over to Hui Ke as containing the essence of Zen Buddhism must be sought in this, that the constant refrain of the Lankavatara is the all-importance of an inner perception, or self-realization. Therefore, the purpose of this sutra is highly practical in spite of its abstract speculations. In the first chapter, which is added to the two later translations of the Lankavatara, we have this from the Buddha, who, gently smiling, looking at the palace of Lanka on Mount Malaya, says, quote, "All the Buddhas of the past have discoursed on the truth of an inner realization, which can be attained only by the supreme wisdom, or Arya Jnana, of the Buddha, and never by the speculation of the philosophers, or by the discipline of the Shravaka and Pratyeka Buddha. This truth I will now disclose for the benefit of Ravana, king of Lanka." Close quote. And when the Bodhisattva Mahamati finished praising the virtues of the Buddha in the beginning of chapter 2, which is chapter 1 of the Sung translation, the Buddha, surveying the assembly, made this remark, quote, "O ye sons of the victorious one, and O thou, Mahamati, I ask and I will instruct you concerning the attainment of the inmost realization, or pratyat magati." Close quote. These statements are conclusive, as showing that the Lankavatara's special importance in the literature of Mahayana Buddhism lies in its perpetual upholding of this intuitive element in all religion. While the sutra has been made use of to support the claims of a particular school, such as the Yogacara or the Avatamsaka, in its connection with the doctrine of the Alaya Vijnana or Tathagata, this connection is accidental. The thesis of the sutra must be regarded as centered upon the idea of an inner perception of the deepest truth, which goes beyond language and reasoning. The Buddhist discipline, or exercise, or yoga, as it is told by the Buddha, consists of two parts, philosophical and practical. The philosophical discipline is to train the mind to absolute idealism and see that the world is mind, and that there is in reality no becoming such as birth and death, and that no external things really exist. While the practical side is to attain an inner perception by means of supreme wisdom. Putting the practical side of Buddhist discipline first, we can say that when it is accomplished, the philosophical side follows by itself. That is to say, the world, as seen in the light of self-realization, is to be interpreted in terms of absolute idealism. However this may be, the Lankavatara is decidedly rich in deep, mystical speculations. One thing I wish to notice in the Lankavatara, before I proceed to describe the nature of the inner realization, is that this sutra does not make one reference to the awakening of the thought of enlightenment, made so much of, especially in the sutras of the Prajnaparamita group. The awakening of the thought of enlightenment means to take interest in the teachings of Mahayana Buddhism, and to wish sincerely for the realization of its truth. This is really the first step in the career of a bodhisattva, for without this awakening, no further progress in spiritual discipline will be possible. Therefore, in almost all the Mahayana Sutras, one is told to direct one's first thought toward enlightenment. When this is accomplished, one must come someday to the final attainment, however remote that day may be. In the Lankavatara, no word is said about the awakening, but it goes directly to the heart of the matter. That is, it asks the bodhisattva to come to the realization at once, instead of making gradual advance toward the goal. In this respect, this sutra may be said to be an appeal to those bodhisattvas who are already deeply steeped in the Mahayana teaching of supreme enlightenment. Another thing that the student of the Lankavatara notices is that the Buddha here tells Mahamati to attain a state of inner realization and not of enlightenment or sambodhi. These two are psychologically the same process. When one has inner realization, one is enlightened. But in the Lankavatara, the ultimate goal of Buddhist life is generally stated in terms of experience and not intellectually as illumining. I am inclined to think that the Lankavatara is unique in this respect, explaining perhaps the reason why Buddhadharma, the father of Zen Buddhism in China, recommended it to his mystic followers. When the Lankavatara refers to Gochara or Gati-Gochara instead of to Bodhi or Sambodhi, we realize that the main object of the sutra centers on the acquirement and cultivation of a certain general subjective attitude toward the world and life, which is not merely philosophical or conceptual, but which comes from the experience of some definite turning in the activity of the mind. Sambodhi, or enlightenment, looks more toward the cognitive aspect of the revulsion one experiences. This is all well as far as it goes, which is indeed the basis of all Buddhism, be it Hinayana or Mahayana. The Lankavatara, however, has come to see that the whole of the Buddhist life is not merely seeing into the truth, but in living it, experiencing it, so that there will be no dualism in one's life of seeing and living. Seeing must be living, and living seeing, with no hiatus between them, except in language. Hence, the Lankavatara's reference so much to living or experience. Gochara or Gati Gochara, that is, Pratyatma Gochara.